Going. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Kathy Cairo. I know a lot of you, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time tonight to meet with me. I'm going to bring up a little presentation here so that we can cover a lot of information. Those of you who registered, many of you included questions. So what I've tried to do is include all of your questions in my presentation as we go over it. Brandon is here with me, my assistant, and if I forget anything, he's going to help me out. He's going to remind me that I didn't cover something. But we want to talk about tonight what has been really the biggest shakeup in my industry in over 70 years. And my industry affects a lot of you, especially if you are going to be selling a home, if you're going to be buying a home, all of this affects you. So tonight I'm going to go through, hopefully in an understandable way, what has happened in our industry, how it affects you, and what changes will happen as we move forward in the buying and selling of homes. A little bit about myself. I've been in business for almost 30 years here in Central Ohio. Myself and my team have sold thousands of homes. My love and my expertise is training and education. I do dozens of seminars like this throughout the year. And I only tell you that if you are not already on our mailing list, or if you don't already follow us on Facebook or Instagram, do that, because that's how you're going to know when these seminars come up. I don't spam you, I don't send you a lot of emails, but I do send out to the people. We have about an 8,000 person database. I do send out emails just saying, hey, this is a training or a seminar coming up, so if you have interest. And of course, many of you I've met at Downsize Columbus, which is the premier downsizing seminar which I created about 13 years ago, and we have had literally thousands of Central Ohio homeowners attend that seminar. So we welcome you to attend too, and if you just follow us, you'll know when it's coming up. Always free, generally. Sometimes we charge when we have speakers come in, but we try to give you education that's relevant to your needs in the purchase or sale of real estate. So I want to start by just giving you some basic definitions that will help make sense of what I'm about to tell you. The first thing I want to tell you is that the National Association of Realtors, or the NAR, is the trade organization for realtors. I'm going to also tell you something that you may not know. Realtors is a brand name. It's like Fritos or Kleenex. Not all men and women who sell homes are realtors. They are only realtors if they are a member of the National Association of Realtors, as am I, and as are the vast majority of agents in the United States are members of this trade organization. In fact, there are 1.5 million realtor members in the United States. We have over 10,000 realtors right here in Central Ohio. Simply because of the numbers of realtors out there, we tend to monopolize the industry. NAR owns, manages, and sets the rules for including your home in the MLS service, or the multiple listing service. And here in Central Ohio, 93% of all homes that are sold through the MLS. The remaining 7% are builders who are building homes and sell through their models. They may or may not use the MLS. Also, there's a small amount of for sale by owners out there, less than 1%, but a small amount. But as you can see, the job of a realtor and the use of the MLS can be essential in the sale of your home. We are hard to avoid. We are hard to get around if you have a home to sell. So let's talk about what we've always done. The NAR was established over 70 years ago. And that's 70 years. So what we've done in the past, we have come to you if you hired us as a listing agent, and the listing agent is the one who puts the sign in the yard, represents you as the seller in selling your home. I would sit at your dining room table and I would tell you that my commission, which is based on the price of the home, historically has been 5 to 6% of the sales price. No matter if the sale of the home was a $200,000 home or a $2 million home, the percentage paid to your realtor was typically 5 to 6%. Then what I would tell you after we established that commission is that you would give me permission to take that commission and split it to compensate the agent who brought the buyer to your home. We would then compensate the buyer's agent for procuring and representing the buyer. In the past, not always, but generally, it would be 3%. So even if I negotiated my half, we would try to protect that 3% so that you would have the benefit of all the buyers and their agents coming to your home. Before I get to the next step, I want to talk to you in realistic terms about how much money a realtor makes. I know I have said at many a closing table, and the client looks at the settlement statement, sees my commission, and says something along the line of, "Boy, I'm in the wrong industry," or "Boy, I wish I had your job." And I can decidedly tell you many days you probably don't. You'd probably be thrilled to stay in your own job. An agent's commission is, first of all, no matter what you agree to pay me, the first thing I have to do in that dollar figure that comes at the closing table is I have to share it with my broker. There are no rogue agents out there working. We are required by the Division of Commerce to work under the umbrella of a broker. That's the reason we're called agents. We are agents of the broker. So the first thing I have to do is I have to go, in my case, I have to go to Keller Williams. I don't even see my share of whatever the commission was until my broker takes their share. Now that can range between a 95-5 split, meaning the broker gets 5 and I get 95. Sometimes it's 50-50. Brand new agents will sometimes come in at a 50-50 split. But average in Central Ohio is a 70-30 split, meaning the broker gets 30% of that pot of money at the closing table, and then the agent gets 70. As agents, we are self-employed, and if we want to stay on the right side of the law in the IRS, we're going to then pay our own taxes quarterly and annually, Social Security, and health care out of that. So what that means is the average net, after all that money comes out of our commission, is about 58% of the original amount. So, given an example, on a $400,000 home, if I'm on a 70-30 split, minus taxes and all that extra stuff, the original commission was $12,000. I come home with $6,804. Now, not complaining, not telling anyone to feel sorry for us. I just want to make sure you have a clear idea of how much money your agent actually takes home. An average agent sells 18 homes a year for an annual net income of about $81,460 a year. And that is based on the Columbus Board of Realtor numbers from 2023. So again, just in clarity, that's how your agent gets paid. So let's talk about then our commission. Has the commission historically been negotiable? Well, first of all, I would tell you absolutely. A realtor's commission has always been negotiable. If you have listed 3 homes in your career, the agent will tell you they negotiated their commission probably on 2 of them. It is not uncommon for the homeowner to say, "Kathy, you know, we're also buying a home with you. Would you mind negotiating the commission on the sale of our home if we can allow you to represent us on the buy end?" Or you might be a repeat customer. You've sent me all of your kids. You have, over the years, I've done 10 to 12 transactions with your family. Well, you might get the friends and family discount. Again, it just depends on my relationship with you, my job within the transaction. Often it can be related to the price of the home. I might not be as willing to negotiate on a $200,000 home as I would an $800,000 home. So again, a realtor's commission has always been negotiable. Now, has the buyer's agent commission been negotiable? That's a yes and no. Legally, it always has been. The seller at any time could say, Kathy, I know it is tradition or customary to pay the buyer's agent 3%, but can we just offer them 2%? I have a $500,000 home. I think $10,000 is enough. Can we just offer that? That's always been your right, but I will tell you reasonably and truthfully, my answer, as well as many agents, has been you certainly can, but if you offer 3%, that might jeopardize, less than 3%, that might jeopardize the number of showings on your home, because up until a month, 2 months ago, whatever you offered or did not offer the buyer's agent was listed right in the MLS, and it might affect the number of showings you get on your home. That was just the truth. So what would ultimately happen is that you would list your home, and we might negotiate my commission, but we would typically try not to touch the buyer's agent's commission. We would leave that at 3%. Okay, fast forward, coming into 2018. A group of enterprising attorneys decided that this way of doing business was illegal. They said, first of all, requiring sellers to pay 3% to buyer's agents is in violation of antitrust laws, resulting in artificially high prices on homes. Here was their argument. They said, look, we know that the payment to the buyer's agent is built into the price of the home, and since you are setting as a standard 3%, no matter what the price of the home is, it's making the prices of homes artificially high. Well, I won't spend a lot of time tonight arguing that fact, but here in Central Ohio, we've had 10 to 11 and at times 12% appreciation a year because of supply and demand issues that had nothing to do with what the buyer's agent was getting paid. That was the argument that was put forth. In this class action lawsuit, they also maintained that by working on the old model of paying realtors, buyers were being deprived of the right to negotiate their own commissions with their agent, resulting in paying that higher price for a home. The argument from the attorneys was this is bad for the consumer. The consumer should have the right to sit down with their realtor and say, you know what, I don't want to pay you 3%. I want to only pay you 2% or 1% or a flat fee of $5,000. And if I can't work it out with you, I'll go find one of those 10,000 agents who will work for $5,000 and I will hire them. That was the argument. And so in that, they were saying in our old model of paying agents, it was price fixing. And so they initiated a class action lawsuit 6 years ago. I won't go any further into it because there's thousands of pages of reading. If you just Google NAR Realtor Commission's lawsuit, you can read to your heart's content and get into the weeds on it. But that was basically the argument. That case has wound its way through the courts, as often takes. And in addition, by the way, the defendants in the lawsuit, the groups being sued, was the NAR, National Association of Realtors, and 4 major brokers, including mine. Keller Williams, Remax, Century 21, and Berkshire Hathaway, I believe, were the 5 defendants in this lawsuit. So, what happened in spring of 2024? Rather than go have after the trial went through its process, Rather than have this all go to the jury, the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, chose to settle the lawsuit in March of 2024. The trade organization agreed to a settlement in the amount of $418 million to be paid over 4 years, and outside the financial damage, to substantially change the way realtors get paid. Now, we heard about this in March. Some of you were on a class that I did like this in May. The reason I'm doing it again is because we've now had 6 months to work with these rules, and they became legally in effect on August 24th, 2024. On August 24th, 2024, moving forward, we had to change the entire way we do business, and that consequently changes for you, the way you will do business when you buy and sell homes. So let's talk about that. What are the new rules? Let's start with if you are buying a home. Now, let's start also with a statistic that 70% of you who are selling a home are also likely to buy a home. So you are going to be affected both by the seller changes as well as the buyer changes. But we're going to start for now with buying a home. First of all, the buyer and the buyer's agent commission. I sent to you, along with the link to this Zoom, a PDF copy of the exclusive right to represent buyer for residential property. It's a 4-page agreement that every buyer must sign before going to see a home. Now, let me tell you what a drastic change this is in our industry. If you have ever bought a home before, you likely called me and said, "Hey, Kathy, I don't know if you remember me. This is John and Mary Smith. You sold us a home 10 years ago. We're not sure we want to sell, but a home just came on the market in this neighborhood. Could you show it to us?" And I would say, "Sure. When would you like to go? I'll meet you out there and we'll show a home." If you didn't have interest, we hugged, said, "How are you doing? How are the kids?" And then we went our separate ways. No more. Now, doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you're a past client, doesn't matter if you call off a Zillow listing, doesn't matter. If you call me to see a house, the first thing I'm going to do is send you this agreement, which you must sign in order for me to show you a home. I will not be permitted to show it to you without this agreement signed. If you know me, if you don't know me, if you just called off a sign, if you just called off a web lead, doesn't matter. My name is Kathy Cairo. I'm happy to meet you at the house, but give me your email address because you first have to sign this document. Now, what's in that document? Well, it's a number of things. It is a contract. If any of you have ever sold a home, you know that I didn't just put a sign in your yard. We signed a listing agreement. Well, this is in reverse. This is a buyer agreement. And what it does is it outlines my responsibility to you as an agent, and it outlines your responsibility to me as a realtor, including my commission. You and I are going to sit down and determine how much I'm going to get paid, and you are going to be responsible for paying me. Now, don't fall off the chair, because there are options for that, but ultimately this agreement says you're going to decide with Kathy Cairo how much you're going to pay her to represent you, and that money must come from you in some form. The agent's compensation will be agreed upon. All of my responsibilities will be outlined, your responsibilities will be outlined, and then it will be signed, and then I will tell you, I will meet you at the house at 4 o'clock. Now, this agreement can be signed for one house. It can be signed for 3 houses. I've had people call me on my listings and say, "Kathy, I don't have a realtor, but I want to go see your new listing on this street." And I've said, "You've got to sign this agreement." "Well, no, we don't want to commit to a realtor. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I cannot let you in a house without signing it. However, I will identify in this agreement that I am only representing you on this one home. This agreement is for one house on one day." and you have to sign it. So it doesn't have to be a month-long agreement. It can be for one house or two houses or three, or some of my buyers will sign this for 6 months or a year. They don't care. They know they're going to use me to buy a home. And then we put in the agreement what you're going to get paid. Buyers attending open houses will not be required to have an agreement signed. If you're just going through open houses, if you're going to builder models, you do not have to have the agreement signed. Now, I will tell you that many builders are now saying, if Joe and Mary Smith walk into a model and say Kathy Cairo is our realtor and ultimately build with that builder, the builders are now coming back saying, send me this agreement, show me you had it signed, and show me that when they signed it, they agreed to the commission of 3%. Now, and I'll get to that in a moment. An agreement can be signed for one house, many houses, or for a specific period of time. At closing, the buyer is responsible for paying whatever commission was negotiated or put on that form that was signed. Okay, so what are your options? You're a buyer and you're saying, well, wait a minute, I've already saved my down payment, I've saved my closing cost, and oh my gosh, now I have to come up with another $10,000 to pay you. What are my options in doing that? Well, let's talk about this. This is a literal page from our buyer books. We do sit down with our buyers and educate them on the buying process. You'll see it starts with number 4 because number 1 is your pre-closing cost, which you've always had. Number 2 is your closing cost. Number 3 is your down payment. So you've always had those. Now there's a number 4. My compensation is negotiable. It's my hope that you feel my value to you is worth 3% of the purchase price of the home. What options do I have for paying the commission? Well, number 1, you can just pay me. You can pay the fee out of pocket. This will allow you to possibly negotiate a lower price if the seller has allowed for compensation in the agreement. Not B, and quite frankly, this is what's happening most often. You can still ask within the contract for the seller to contribute towards the commission. It is still very common for the seller to include in their purchase price allowance for the buyer's agent commission in that price. Let me skip back to builders. Virtually all of the builders have still included in their marketing budget 3% to pay me when I represent you on the sale of a home. So if you're building a new home, no harm, no foul, job done. All you do is sign an agreement with me and the builder saying, yes, you show me that agreement and I will pay your realtor. Couple rules that are involved in this, and I don't want to make it too complicated because if we sit down one-on-one, we'll get more into the weeds. What the rules say is that as an agent, I cannot accept any more from the seller than what you and I agree to. So for example, if I sit down and I agree to work for you for 2% and the builder is offering 3%, I can only take 2%. So what I'm doing with many of my clients is saying, look, if you will agree to the 3% on our buyer agreement, I will work with you if we come across a seller who is not paying anything or in some way is less than that 3%. But is it not fair that if the money's not coming from your pocket, well, fair's not the right word, but is it okay if the money's not coming from your pocket, we agree to that 3%, I get paid 3%. So again, going a little further into the weeds than I wish to, but virtually every builder is still offering the 3% commission. Quite frankly, many homeowners are still offering the 3% commission. So B, ask the seller to contribute towards the commission. It's still common for the seller to include allowance for the buyer's agent commission in their purchase price. And then C, combination of A and B. One of the things I've done for my buyers is after we've signed that agreement and they want to see a house, they'll call me and say, Kathy, we really want to see this house on Main Street. Would you check with the listing agent and find out if the seller's offering any compensation? And I call or text the agent. They say, yes, we're offering 3%. They'll say, we're offering 2%. They might say, no, we're not offering anything, but we are open to paying you, so just put it in the purchase contract. So again, your options are pay it out of pocket, ask the seller to pay it, or some combination of the two of these things. I've had some transactions where my buyer said, yeah, I'll pay you 3%. The home they chose, the seller was only offering 2.5%, and they've said, Kathy, no problem. We will kick in the additional 0.5%. What it is. Again, it's a negotiation and an ongoing discussion with the client, with the realtor and the client. Now, wait a minute. I thought you said the buyer's agent commission is the responsibility of the buyer. What are you saying about this seller contribution? Well, let's skip over now to the seller responsibility in this. The new rules allow for the seller to continue offering compensation to the buyer's realtor, as you always have. So why would I do that? Kathy, if I can get away with not paying the buyer's agent, why would I offer to pay the buyer's agent? Well, let's talk about that. Number one, let's talk about the value that a buyer's realtor brings to you as the homeowner. So when I sit down with you, I'm going to first talk about my commission as the listing agent, how I get paid. Do you have a choice? We will discuss all of that. We will come up with the commission amount for the listing agent. That will all be settled. Then we're going to switch gears, and at your dining room table, I'm going to talk to you about the buyer's agent. Would you like to offer compensation to the buyer's representative? So what does a buyer's agent do? I'm going to go over these quickly. They procure the buyer. They assist the buyer in getting approved for a mortgage. They explain the process. They make certain that the buyer is financially, mentally, and emotionally prepared to buy. They introduce the buyer to your home through connection with available sources. They sell the buyer on your home even before showing it. They point out the features of your home that make it stand out. They compare and contrast the value of your home with competing properties. They communicate with me to craft an acceptable offer to you. They write the offer, including all terms important to you. They present the offer, clearly defining those terms to me. They negotiate representation of the buyer. They keep the transaction on track, meeting deadlines, working with the lender to get the home closed, and they solve problems. They work as a liaison between the buyer and their partners to facilitate a smooth closing. All of those are literal money in the bank for you as a homeowner. You want a good, high quality, well prepared, smart buyer's agent bringing the buyer on your home. So, do you want to contribute to that buyer's agent's compensation? That contribution can be 0 to a higher percentage, or you can decide that you just want to offer a flat fee for the buyer's agent if you want to offer anything at all. So, to help you make that decision, some side information for you. First of all, the buyer's realtor, as we have said, will be required to have the buyer-broker compensation agreement negotiated and signed before showing your property. The seller's offer or not of compensation to the buyer's broker will be made to the buyer and their realtor before showing your home. Like I said, it will be done through text. It will be done through phone call. In some way, the buyer's agent has the right to call the listing agent and say, is the seller offering compensation? Your decision whether or not to offer compensation will not affect your inclusion in the MLS or placement in the MLS. You will not be kept from the MLS just because you don't offer compensation. If you list your home with an NAR realtor, it will be in the MLS. Now, something to keep in mind, some buyers will not be able to afford to pay their realtor in addition to the standard fees for which they're responsible. In this case, if you have elected not to compensate the buyer broker, the buyer may elect not to view your home, or they're going to turn around and ask you. I've put here on your screen a copy of a purchase contract, which we are seeing on a daily basis now, where the buyer has asked the seller to compensate their realtor. This is now becoming a normal part of all of our purchase contracts, is the buyer is asking for the seller to compensate that. The next thing to keep in mind is if the buyer is deciding between the purchase of two homes and your offer of compensation or not is in play, that may be a consideration in their decision. Finally, what we're seeing, and this is what we've seen in the last 6 months, we are seeing most buyer's agents are still getting that 3% on their buyer broker compensation agreement, and they are still then turning around and asking the seller to pay that. The practice will vary widely depending on the price of the home, supply and demand in the market, and whether or not there is a multiple offer on the home or other factors. I'll talk more about that. So what we're seeing in real life every day in our market, buyer's agents are getting their buyers to agree to that 3% commission, then they are turning around and putting it in the contract just like this to ask the seller to pay it. So is it really any different than we were a year ago or in the past 70 years? Perhaps not in the end result, but the practice is very different. Now on our listing agreements, there is a separate number for the listing agent and the buyer's agent, and the discussion is completely different. There's more disclosure, there's more negotiation, and there's more understanding of the process. So your choice as a homeowner, under what circumstances would it be a smart strategy to offer nothing to the buyer broker? I've given you in the screenshot part of our new listing agreement, where now we break up what the seller is going to pay their realtor and what they are willing to pay the buyer's agent. This is our new listing agreement. So there is a strategy in play that would be smart for you to offer the buyer's agent zero. Now, does that mean you're going to pay zero? No, it just means up front you're not going to offer anything. When would that be a smart strategy? If the market and demand indicates the potential for multiple offers. If we were having this discussion in 2019, I would tell all my homeowners, don't offer anything to the buyer's agent, because you're going to get 15 offers and we will include the realtor's commission as one of the negotiable terms. Maybe you get a great offer and the buyer's agent is asking for 3%. You get an equally great offer and the buyer's agent is only asking for 2%. So that's a negotiable term, just like anything else. So when I sit down with you at your home, we will discuss supply and demand. We will discuss whether or not it's a smart strategy in your case not to offer anything. Now, what I'm telling my homeowners is, we may not want to upfront offer anything, but I'm going to prepare you that you are going to very likely be asked to pay it. Because it's just that's our industry is still going that way, that the buyer is asking the seller to contribute to that. Another point is, if the price point lends itself to a caliber of buyer who has the funds to pay their realtor and they prefer to negotiate the price of the home separate from the compensation to their broker, you may be in the ballpark to not offer anything. Say you have an $800, $900 million home out there. That's a whole different buyer. That buyer might be more interested in negotiating your price down and paying their realtor a negotiated amount out of their own pocket. So it is all math. It's, am I going to pay you more for your house and ask you to compensate my broker, or am I going to pay less for your house and I will take care of paying my broker. So that's the reason it's a much more in-depth and nuanced discussion than we used to have. So now I don't come to your table and say, look, the commission is 6%, sign this paper, off and running. Now we are going to sit and discuss my commission as your listing agent, and then we're going to switch gears and say, let's talk about your home, your price in this market, and let's decide whether or not we want to offer compensation to the buyer's agent. Now, another question I get: can I change my mind about the buyer broker commission after signing the listing agreement? The answer is yes. It's your home. You can choose to compensate the buyer's realtor or not, or to offer compensation, or to change the amount of the compensation at any time before a purchase contract has been agreed to by all parties. Let me give you an example. We have seen the market this fall drop drastically. We have seen neighborhoods where we had nothing on the market for years, literally years, and now we have 10 homes on the market. In some areas of Central Ohio, we are in a buyer's market. So I met with a homeowner last May who had a home in a very desirable neighborhood where homes were getting multiple offers. And she said, Kathy, what's this going on about the realtor's commissions? And I explained it to her. She goes, okay, I don't want to offer the buyer's agent anything. Everybody's getting multiple offers. I don't want to offer them anything. I said, fine. Well, life took over and she did not get around to listing her home until September of this year. 31 days later, she's saying to me, Kathy, can we change that to 3%? Okay, what happened? The circumstances of her sale changed, and all of a sudden, with a vacant home sitting out there, she got very motivated to say, let's offer compensation to the buyer's agent to get them in the door. Now, I don't know that the reason her home had sold had anything to do with the commission, because it wasn't publicly known. She just listed her home once the market slowed. So again, those are the kinds of things we take into account when I'm having that discussion with you as to what's going on literally this day, this week, this month, this market, your neighborhood, how many homes are on the market, what are you competing with, what is your price point, and I will give you my best advice what to do. Even if you offer compensation, the buyer may ask for more, less, or nothing in their purchase offer. Any compensation agreed to will now be put in writing in the purchase contract. So let's say you tell me up front, Kathy, I only want to offer 2% on as a homeowner. That doesn't mean you won't get a contract that asks for 3%. You are just making an offer. The buyer does not have to accept your offer. We go with whatever's agreed upon in the purchase contract. So the simplest way to look at it is the buyer's agent's commission becomes negotiable just like everything else we've always negotiated in your home. And what you're willing to negotiate is very tied to market conditions, what you get on the home, how long your home's been on the market, and how motivated you are to sell. You may not be motivated on day 1, but you might be really motivated on day 46. So again, it is a number we put out there, but again, we can change it up until the time your home goes into contract, and that's written there. Okay, one thing I want to talk about, I have some of you saying, hey, I'm getting postcards, phone calls, and emails from the attorneys. Can I cash in on that settlement? So let me tell you what's happening. A lot of ambulance chasing attorneys saw this huge award in Missouri and said, I want in on that. So they began sending postcards out all over the country. And by the way, one of the questions you asked, is this just in Ohio? No, this is nationwide. This is every realtor, every member of the NAR across the nation now is following these new rules. So I've had a half dozen clients here in Central Ohio call me and say, Kathy, we love you. You did a great job, but hey, I got this postcard in the mail. Is there any money in this for me? I don't want to get you in trouble. It was just so sweet. They'll say, I don't want to get you in trouble, but hey, is there any money to be had in this? So let me first tell you what those postcards are saying. I don't know if any of you have gotten them, but the postcard or email notifies the recipient that they may be eligible as a class members in the settlement of the Burnett versus National Association of Realtors lawsuit. The notification stems from a partial settlement funded by 3 of the defendants in that action. Keller Williams is one of them. To claim eligibility, recipients must meet criteria outlined on the postcard, including having sold property that was listed on the MLS and you paid a broker as part of that sale. So, first of all, that's what the postcards are saying, is that you could be eligible. So, let me first say, as much as I appreciate your kindness and wanting to protect me, your decision to join the class action suit will not harm or affect your realtor in any way if they are a member of the National Association of Realtors. This is because one of the terms negotiated by the NAR in agreeing to the settlement was to release all NAR members from liability in commissions paid for representation of buyers and sellers prior to the date of implementation of the new NAR rules, August 24th, 2024. So we are indemnified. We have no liability whatsoever. So your own realtor, you might love them. You might, I don't know, some of you might not love them and feel like you were taken. Unfortunately, if they are a member of the NAR, they have immunity. They of anything done prior to August 24th. So I would talk to your attorney about your qualifications to pursue a claim on this. There are some ancillary people that you could still sue. Employees of brokers, non-realtors. In other words, let's say the secretary at my office, who's a wonderful person, by the way, she is not a member of the NAR. So I'm sure some enterprising attorney may find a way to sue the non-agent employees of some of these, and maybe that will come up with something. But generally, I would say the chances of you cashing in on any settlement are probably slim, but I would tell you to go for it if you feel like that's something that you want to do. So, moving forward, when choosing a realtor, it is fair to ask and expect the realtor to demonstrate their value to you, and it is your right to negotiate their commission. If you do not feel like the value they're bringing to the table merits a 3% commission, you have the right to negotiate and you have the right to choose another realtor. So how do you measure that value? Well, in the past, we hired the realtor who sold us the house that we live in, or we hired the realtor that had the most signs in the yard, or we hired the realtor that we found on Zillow. Well, what we're finding is the consumer is getting much smarter. They're saying, look, if I'm going to pay you, what are you going to do to work for me? And they're looking for realtors who have experience. They're looking for realtors who are going to advocate for them. They're looking for realtors who know how to price their home, market their home, expose their home to the most buyers. They're looking for realtors who know how to negotiate on their behalf. They're looking for realtors who will get them to the closing table with the least amount of drama and the most money in their pocket. That realtor, most consumers say, I'll pay you all day long. But what I'm telling you is that you should, under these new rules, use a lot more discretion in who you hire. You're going to ask, what is their experience? What is their sales track record? How well do they know the market? What are their tools and resources? What is their knowledge that sets them apart? What will they do for you to give you the best outcome? And I'm telling you, because there are 10,000 of us in this market, there is a difference between good, better, and the best in the real estate industry. And as in most things, you get what you pay for. So questions, do any of you have questions that were not answered here? And if you have them, you can either unmute yourself and ask, or you can put them in the chat box, whatever is easiest for you. Does anybody have questions? Brandon, do we have any in the chat?
Nope, chat is empty.
Okay, so I was brilliant. I got all the questions answered. Anybody have questions here before we close? Any comments? Anybody say this is totally confusing and I don't know why they didn't just keep the old system the way it was? All right. Well, the last thing I want to talk to you about as we close this up is one. I would love to work for you. If you have interest in buying or selling a home, I would love to take my knowledge, as would my team members, and sit at your table and talk specifically about your need. If you don't get anything out of this class except this, I would hope you learn that experience matters. There is a difference between agents who don't know what they're doing and agents that do. You are going to pay that agent a significant amount of money, and you are going to trust that agent to handle for you literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the biggest investments you'll ever make. So experience matters. You want to make sure that realtor, whoever you hire, is bringing to the table the experience and resources that make it worth what you pay them. I have there a QR code. You can scan that. It will take you to our contact page. Brandon's online with us tonight. If you would like me or someone from my team to come sit with you and talk more specifically about your home, this is at no obligation. Unless you tell us to, we don't bring a lockbox, we don't bring paperwork, but we bring a ton of great information so that when we leave your house, you have a clear understanding of the value of your home, the cost of selling your home, and what options you have in making those decisions. So we would love to work for you, and I thank you for taking the time tonight to join us. Good night, and thank you, unless anybody has questions.